The show is made possible in part by its supporting sponsors: Bluewater Power Group of Companies, Joe's Discount Tire, and AskGuy.ca. Well, this is a tough lady to catch up with, let me tell you. And I will punningly say, listen up, because Nashlea Brogan is going to talk to us. Hi, Nashlea.
Hello, how are you doing? Nice to meet you.
We met online, actually, as I think is more common these days in the world. And then we finally got a chance to meet up face-to-face. I think it was at the Age Friendly Expo.
Friendly, yes.
Yeah. And one of the reasons that you popped up on my TikTok.
Yes, I'm on TikTok.
Right? And I was like, wow, this lady's really interesting and smiling and happy and talking about your business. And I don't know, you just had a really fun, I think, genuine way of sharing yourself and your business and what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's been a journey for me to watch, actually. And I like, of course, being a social media guy, I really like the fact that as a business, you're using social media. I think social media gets misused often.
I think so too.
And maybe doesn't get used enough for people in business. So Bluewater Hearing Center is where we're at, right?
Mm-hmm. We're at Bluewater Hearing in Balance, on London Road.
And this hearing journey has been quite a journey for you as well too. But let's go back to the beginning, as I always do. And where are you from originally?
Okay, so I'm originally from Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. That's where I was born. And I lived there until I was 22 years old. And then I came to Ontario for my master's degree in audiology.
Right. And why audiology? Audiology. Sorry.
Why audiology? Most people can't.
Yeah, I can't.
It's not radiology, it's audiology.
I need speech therapy too, right?
So when I was 14, I first had a hearing test because I was struggling, and I was told I had a hearing loss then, but it wasn't enough to do anything about.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was 18, had just graduated from high school, I went to a different audiologist and different ear, nose, and throat specialist. I was fit with hearing aids, and 4 weeks later, I moved to France for the year.
Oh.
So I just graduated, and I was fit with hearing aids, and I was missing a few of my higher frequencies completely then.
Mm-hmm.
I went through all of high school not knowing that the bell rang between classes.
Really?
Yeah. So I got hearing aids, went back, I'm like, oh, the bell rings. I thought people just got up at 9 and got up at 10 and got up at 11. But I was a competitive dancer. I competed all across the Maritimes and Canada, played 3 musical instruments, and was a great student. But we just didn't know that I had that happening. So I was fit with hearing aids, and then I went to France for the year, came back, and went to Acadia University, where I started studying biology and psychology. And as my hearing was progressing, I was doing a lot of psychology then, and really became fascinated with how adults, because I was then like 21, cope and adjust to acquire hearing loss. So you're born with normal hearing, you've had normal hearing and language development, and now you're losing your hearing, so you know what you're missing.
Right.
So I spent a whole year in Nova Scotia studying 200 adults at a local hearing clinic as a psychology student on how they cope with acquired hearing loss and anxiety around hearing loss. And that started my journey. And then I was in that clinic for a year. They sent me up to the Canadian Academy of Audiology's first conference. I didn't realize at the time the man who I went with was the president and the founder of it.
Oh, okay.
And I picked him out of the phone book. It was just I've had a lot of amazing coincidences. I believe in relationships. I've had a lot in my life I'm grateful for. So they encouraged me, and my audiologist in Nova Scotia encouraged me to come to Western University in Ontario, because it had the National Centre for Audiology was being founded then. So it was one of the places in Canada to study audiology. So I decided to become an audiologist from a year observing, and then I was struggling. Like, I wasn't happy to wear hearing aids. I wore them all the time, but people would try to sign into me. They'd say, oh, you're deaf. They would say, oh, you're impaired. Like, there was just words. And I was struggling with understanding the emotions of feelings of feeling broken, right? And then you feel broken, and you're scared of the future. Like, where is this going to go? Am I going to be isolated? Like, will people always judge me? Will I be able to have a career?
Well, and let me interrupt you there, because I think that I have some family members, friends that, have hit that stage of starting to wear the hearing aids. And that comes up as far as feeling embarrassed, or I don't want anybody to know, shamed. Maybe it's a sign of weakness. All of that. So that's a really common thing in this world, right? And I would imagine some of the struggles with that are the caregivers or the family members of that person, and trying to maybe have to convince them, overcome their strong willness.
we call it denial as an audiologist.
Right, okay, denial. But I mean but that's a thing, right? And that's and it's an emotional thing.
It's very emotional.
Because I would imagine, well, I mean, it's like somebody who maybe has had hearing all of their life, and now all of a sudden they don't.
And that's what most adults.
Just like I can't walk anymore, or I can't do the.
That's what most adults go through. And I mean, we as a society, we undervalue our hearing. Our society has 100%. Done a very poor job of understanding. If you talk to someone about losing their mobility or losing their vision, you get a much different reaction. We don't see people walking around with visual problems who don't have prescription glasses.
Right.
But with hearing loss, it's been something that had shame with it, a lot of emotions and feelings. And even though audiology is a very young profession, like very young. It actually was mainly outcome of World War II, and all the vets came back from the war.
Oh, really?
And then a lot of the research started after World War II, and that's created my profession.
Loud banging and
yes, basically the bombs going off, guns. And that was when the research started in audiology. So it might have had some really basic amplifiers back before that, but then our profession really came into its fruition back then. So we're a very young profession. And the research and the outcomes, so the technology's changed, our treatment process have changed, but unfortunately society is still stuck back in the 1950s and 60s. And people they're ashamed of it.
Yeah, because it's way beyond, like I remember as a child, putting headphones on, and they would play a tone and just point to.
Yes, and that was like that's a basic screening now, right? Our testing is advanced. And even the headphones that you listen to do that test, like say headphones that you wore with your Walkman 20 years ago, right? And you listen to a Bose headphones now with noise reduction, like everything has changed from our ability to test and treat, right? And what we know about it, but people are still so embarrassed, so ashamed, they're scared. That's why actually I love talking about sometimes Brene Brown's work, because that's where her work really resonates with me, because when she talks about moving people through to understanding and acceptance and to embracing their emotions, because there's a journey that we go through emotionally for a lot of people when they have a hearing loss.
And there's different levels of hearing loss, different types, I guess.
Many different types. And there's different, we call stages of hearing loss. And what we're now doing, as we've changed in my practice, is stages. Is if you think of like the different, like diabetes has stages, cancer has stages. So we're going through stages because we look at people now saying, a mild hearing loss is still a big problem. We have people come in every day. I have since I started practicing 20 years ago, May, I opened up Bluewater Hearing and Balance. And in Sarnia, I was very young. And I would have people every week come in with normal hearing, adults. Every week I had an adult with normal hearing, but complaining they could not hear. Their family brought them in. But now what we know is from testing is we can test for that. And there is something going on with their auditory system.
My wife says I have hearing problems because I don't listen.
That was part of my TED Talk.
Right? But I will say though, maybe I'll get a free consultation here. But, I was a disc jockey for like over 25 years, right? And I was very close to that speaker. And working in bars, so loud environments typically as well. And I don't know. I feel like I call it distracted hearing loss. I don't know if that's a term or not, but like if the TV's on and seriously, my wife's talking to me, I got to be like pause that. I have trouble focusing, or if I'm in another room. Or maybe it's just because I'm in another room, but it's like it's mumbled to me. And then if the water's running right in front of me and you talk to me, I'm like, I can't hear you. I can hear, but I don't hear it.
What you're saying. So it's a really cool topic. So hearing is different than listening. And I'm assuming you're not 20 years old.
Okay.
So for all of us, our ears start to age in our third or fourth decade of life.
Just like
everybody's
my reading
with
glasses.
Aging, no, but your body, our hair, our skin, our body starts to age, our ears age for everybody in their third to fourth decade of life.
It makes sense.
So usually by the time you're hitting your late 40s, early 50s, you are going to have some damage to your auditory system.
Right.
And on top of that, you're also having more difficulty, so everybody will start, our memory, everything, it's just normal part of aging, right? That's why a 50-year-old is not the same as a 20-year-old.
Sure.
So what you were just talking about, where hearing is different than listening, and that's because most of the processes that occur where you're listening to watching the TV and someone's talking, that's occurring in the brain, not the ear.
Oh.
you're okay.
Right.
It's not about your ears.
It makes sense.
It's not about your ears. Your ears just pick up sound. That's all.
So can I retrain my brain?
And that's where we get into people. There is some actually people who usually listen to music actually usually have quite good perceptual abilities and they're listening. But then that's where we talk to people about being aware. There is different things you can do to strengthen. Obviously, music is one of the biggest things, right? For overall cognitive health.
Yeah.
We do have some auditory training programs, and we also talk to people about good communication skills on learning how to be an active listener, because hearing is different than listening. And a lot of times when people start to notice it, first, they always need a hearing assessment because we are looking at the entire, when we do a hearing assessment now, so when you were put in the booth and you just had those headphones on and beeps, that was just them testing the most basic level of your ears. Now we test the whole auditory system. We do speech and noise testing, we do cognitive screening. We're doing all of these things to see the memory, how the person's processing, how the brain is separating sound. So there's a lot more going on, and we know about that in audiology now. So that's where it's so different than even 20, 30 years ago, which is really fun. I mean, that's why I love my profession, because it's changing so much what I do. Yeah. Right? It's just changing so rapidly. And that's what's so exciting about it. Like, and the people we see coming in now, when they start on their journey, they're in such a better place than even people who started 20 years ago in terms of what we know and how we're going to treat them.
I've talked to some people that have used your services, and they like the relationship building that you do as part of, you're not just come on in, we'll give you a hearing test as a way to get people in the door and then sell them that hearing aid.
No, we want transformation. We want to transform a person. And my audiologist, and she just actually said it after my TED Talk, and she was the one who I did my first clinical placement with, is as an audiologist, we are committed from cradle to grave. And hearing care is a lifelong process. Most people we start with, we see them every 6 months for their
like a family doctor.
And like your dentist, their checkups every 6 months, every year we're tweaking things. And then as they go through life, we're reassessing them so that as they might develop some arthritis, or they might develop memory problems, or they go through chemotherapy, we're adjusting things according to our treatment plan. Things change. And I've had lots of patients now, it's been 20 years, lots who are actually, we have some of them who are still the first numbers in our database. Oh, cool. And it's always been about like, we will take care of you. We will do everything as you change to take care of you in your life. And that always has been my commitment. That's why why I started my practice. And
I like that you have a why.
Oh, I have a very strong, my why is treating hearing loss for life, and it's preventative hearing care. And the word prevention doesn't mean preventing hearing loss. It's preventing decline in your relationships, decline in your quality of life, keeping our patients independent. Like, that is what I want to do for
I always say your why should make you cry. Like, it's that passionate, right? And I like that let's go back to your social media. I'm going to talk about your TED Talk too in a moment. That's really cool. I'm kind of jealous of that one. When you do your social media, like, you're talking, you're not just going, hey, we're Bluewater Hearing and come here and check us out and blah, blah, blah. In fact, you don't really say much of that. No. You talk about, like, one that always resonated with me was being in an airport. Yes. And then getting on the plane, letting the stewardess, whoever, know that you do have a hearing issue. And the most recent one that I watched was you were using the F word.
The falls.
Right? Falls. Right? And it was so funny because it was like, as soon as you started it, I was like, I just can't see that word coming out of this lady's mouth. But then falls went on, and it struck because, well, I'll say it. We have my wife's dad struggles with that, and he won't even see this, but doesn't want to have hearing aids. No, I don't need that and whatever. But he struggles with falling. And so anyway, I bring that up because the way you put your social media out really has a direct impact on different scenarios. Like, you're always thinking like the airport, geez, I never would have thought of that. And she's right, because I again, I call it that distracted hearing that I feel
because
that
you don't think about it, and
it's background noise a lot of times.
And background noise is a big thing, right? I mean, background noise balance.
Yeah.
We're looking, so most people, it's clarity, their memory, their balance. Like in most people, there is certain medical reasons that most people actually have beyond just hearing better, right? I always say, like, it's not about hearing better. It's about helping people hear clear.
Right.
It's about clarity. It's about reducing the ringing in their ears. It's about reducing the risk of falls.
What is that when my ear rings all of a sudden out of nowhere?
So there's many. The most latest research showed it was damage to the ear to the brain connections. So that came out in November from MIT, a big study. And it was the ear to the brain connection for most people. And it's very common, like with aging. So most people will have, or noise exposure.
I'm hearing it more and more.
That word. but you have lots of noise exposure too, and music and that. So all those things can trigger it. And when people come to the clinic, our job actually is to basically figure out their whole history. And, anxiety, depression, stress, all those things can be related. If people are going through massive life changes and they're getting older and they, use a Q-tip and they trigger it and then it doesn't go away and they get more stressed and they think about it more and it gets higher. So we're always working with people holistically, because it really is, that tinnitus is really a whole person issue. But it's always tied back to the auditory system in most cases. 90% of the time it's tied back to the auditory system. And usually when we go through it, we'll usually find something relating back
I was waiting for a simple explanation. I thought it was just like, the bird flew by or something, or I don't know, or the squirrel looked at me funny. It was raining. Yeah, thunderstorms. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, what you said with my social media, and the reason why I don't mention Bluewater hearing a lot in it was because that was not my purpose of creating it, right? My purpose of creating my social media was, over my years, so many people would look at me and they would be like, you just get it. Like, you get me. I had a lady yesterday who messaged me on social media, and she'd gone back to my feed and she said, I've been in all the groups for sudden hearing loss and I left them because they're all negative, but you resonate with me so much.
That's awesome.
And I was like one person.
There's a feel good moment.
Just an amazing feeling. So I made my post this morning on accepting hearing loss, and it's okay to self-care, self-love. It's important. It's important, and it's important for people to know that having a hearing loss, there's 1.5 billion people living with hearing loss right now in the world. By 2050, it'll be at 2.5 billion, and that's according to the World Health Organization.
Wow.
So there's a lot of hearing loss out there. It's not anything that's like a few people. By the time you're 75, over 70% of the population have it.
Well, that's interesting too, because I think, so I'm going to be 55 this year. I'll put it out there. So when I was in public school, like grade 3 or something, like hearing loss was just, you either heard or you were deaf.
Yes.
It wasn't really any middle ground, right?
And that's part of the reason.
It's probably always been like that.
And that's part of the reason why we have these problems in society. Right? We don't realize it's farthest thing from the truth.
Yeah. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. I want to get a little personal with you, like your family. Are you married?
Yes.
Yeah, and do you have children?
So, my husband, Stevan, Dr. Lefebvre, he's a dentist in Sarnia at Northgate Dentistry.
Oh, okay.
And my two children are, they're turning 15 and 18 in 2 weeks.
No, come on.
so I'm 48.
You don't
I'm almost
50. My goodness, that's crazy.
So my two children, and so we've been in, my family's here. My sister Michelle works with me at Bluewater Hearing. She moved to Sarnia 20 years ago to help me open Bluewater Hearing. Cool. The rest of my family's in Nova Scotia and in Toronto. Yeah. So so I have lots of family here.
Do you get home to visit?
They come up. My dad, they come up a lot, and I used to go back every year. But because my one sister lives here, I'm the oldest of 4 girls, and my 2 sisters are in Toronto. They come every other weekend, so we see each other a lot.
Close family.
We're very close.
That's awesome, though, that you can do that, right?
We're very close.
Because sometimes, especially like even Toronto, like I know people have family that lives in Toronto, and they're like, I don't see him that much. I'm like, it's 3 hours away.
We see each other a lot. My sister was just here this last weekend, and next weekend I'll be tomorrow. I'm in Toronto again, so we see each other every couple of weekends.
Nice. Okay, you recently had an exciting experience.
I did.
You got to do a TED Talk.
Yes.
Which, that's like an Oscar. No, really, to be able to, seriously, I think that it's very credible. It's like the golden ticket, How did that feel?
How did it feel? When I first found out, I've dreamt for 8 years of doing. When I was 40, I was like, I want to do a TED Talk on me going deaf, because I went deaf as an adult, right? Yeah. And I'm like, I want to do a TED Talk on my experience going deaf. and what I felt, and then getting my hearing back with cochlear implants. So I applied, and I thought, I'd wait 4 to 5 months to hear. Right. 2 weeks later, I heard, but the TED Talk was only 3.5 weeks later.
Oh.
And I've heard that people had 3 to 6 months to prepare.
Right. And you're like, oh my goodness.
And I was working with the coach, a TED Talk coach, and he was like, just cancel all your plans. But I'm like, but I'm going on a cruise for March break with my family. We booked it a year ago with their friends.
Like, I gotta go.
So I had to go. And so I'm on the cruise, and we're trying to do this TED Talk. And I got back, and it was surreal. I mean, the experience of writing it, the process, deciding what you want to do, then flying down, the best part, which I did not expect those. So, I was at Boston College, and we were in Boston, which is amazing. It was amazing. My family all came, all my family. So very exciting. But the best part of which I never expected was I was terrified going, because when I read the other speakers' bios, there was like Dr. Mark Schrein, blah, 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 a Harvard, Princeton medical doctor, lecturer, who World Health Organization, and then there was this CEO of this big company, and there's this person who had books, and this person, and then there was me. I was like reading their bios, and I was like, I don't belong with these people. Yeah. So it wasn't even the TED Talk. It was just like, I don't belong on stage. We get there the night before for the rehearsal, and it was amazing. Like we were all, I think, freaking out just as much. Right. We were all forgetting ourselves on the rehearsal just as much. Yeah. We bonded. And then the next day, it was just like, they were just so real. And we were just, they were just people. And that was my best memory of it. I'm like, I just met 5 incredible human beings. One of them was a student at Boston College who did his. And it's just, that was my best memory of it, was I just met 5 incredible people. And the college students were putting the TED Talk on. Like, they were just amazing to work with. I did have to be interviewed for it. So I
what's the process? Like, do you apply?
You submit these up. There's TED Talks going worldwide, all over the world, and they all have their theme. Right?
Oh, okay.
So they all have different themes. So a lot of times you can have a great application, but just depends if your theme. And I had submitted 30 applications to different places. Wow. Right at the same time.
You were determined.
Well, that's the process. Yeah. But their theme was know your why. Right? Really? What makes you get up in the morning and do what you do? So all 5 of us knew that our why was.
This is the laws of the universe speaking to me, because people who know me know I talk about, you got to have your why. Your why should make you cry. If you don't have your why, it's not going to work, all that stuff. So this is, And that
was it. So all 5 of us knew our why. And we all had, the medical doctor talked about, Dr. Mark Schrein talked about how he didn't even want to be a doctor. He did a doctor, he left medicine, went back to medicine, how he made it in a career. Like, all of us talked about how our journeys and finding ourselves, and then now feeling very fulfilled and passionate about what we do. But I had to be interviewed. So you find out, you schedule the interview, you're in a Zoom call being interviewed, and they'll say, we'll let you know when you're selected. We still have another 50, 60, 100 interviews, whatever. And you wait, you're waiting. So I found out, but I was thinking, okay, I wasn't accepted because the talk's in 3 weeks, right? No, all 5 speakers found out the same day. It was like, the talk is 3 weeks from today.
Wow.
And then you have to write it, submit it to them about a week and a half in advance. It has to go through their
That would be the tough one for me, is to write it.
Well, and you have to write it, and then you have to submit it to a legal team, and it has to be approved by their legal team.
Oh, wow.
And then they want to go over it with you because it has to agree with their guidelines, the TEDx guidelines. Right. And then even when you do it, it goes through a legal team kind of with TEDx afterwards before it goes up online.
Wow, but you did it.
I did. I still not out yet.
Because that's a tiring process just to hear you tell it. But I'm so happy for you. That's to go through that. And it's a victory journey, because you hear Thomas Edison tried to invent the bulb 200 times. Thankfully, he did it 200. So you're talking 30 applications. You're talking out of how many people? Yeah. And then that process and the legal process and
then so 4 weeks.
And we haven't even seen it yet.
I haven't seen it. And then 4 weeks afterwards, all the speakers in my group, they're up on the TEDx. Right? They're loaded every day. TEDx loads 20, 30, 40 talks worldwide. They're going, but mine's not there.
You're like,
so then I'm like, do they think it was pseudoscience? Are they checking my references? Is it going to have a disclaimer on it? And it's going to be a couple months. So I'm sitting there getting physically sick. I was developing OCD every day, checking to see if mine was listed. And I'm 5 days in, from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock every day, they post them all. And I'm on my phone just checking. I'm like, okay, this has to stop. So I emailed the college, and they reached out to them. And then I get the email. and it's like you've been chosen as an editor's pick.
Yeah.
We feel like this is a valuable idea we're spreading to our global audience of 40 million subscribers. We are working on a campaign to have the best optimization of yours when it gets published. We will let you know when that happens.
So you went from here to getting accepted to here, to being in a room with those people to here, and then way up there.
Yeah, it doesn't still seem like real. It's pretty cool. And I told you, I felt like when I watched a video of myself doing it, like I love when I'm on stage using my hands and moving around. What they didn't prepare me for, though, if someone was doing one, you can't see the audience.
Oh,
it's really black. There's no interaction from the audience, and you're standing on a circle that's not really taped to the floor. So I'm standing there in high heels, not prepared for this little red carpet that's not really really. I feel secure. I'm not supposed to move outside. They said don't leave the red circle, and it's only as big as this chair.
Oh wow!
Don't leave the circle.
I'd have trouble with that one too. I want to move around.
You're not going to get much reaction from the audience because the one I was just black.
Oh.
So if I was preparing again, I would stand in front of the wall, and I would just stand in front of the wall, and I would have been practicing home in a completely black room going, and using my hands and be like, and you need to treat your hearing loss. Because I don't feel like I delivered like
so it was challenging.
Because that was very challenging. Like I came off of the stage, and then it's all there's no teleprompter. I didn't have slides, and you're being timed. And we wanted mine to be just over 10 minutes, even though you're allowed up to 17. So basically the plan was that, a lot of the TED Talks that are coming out now are shorter because attention spans have dropped. So most people still try to push the 17 minutes, right? But we're trying to go like shorter. And then because I'm in hearing healthcare and there's going to be other hearing professionals watching it, and I am a hearing professional, I have to make sure that my statistics are correct and that I don't just give my personal view on it too much, because you do want to stay it still has to have that like evidence-based science aspect,
You want to be medically accurate.
You got to be, So that was the part that I am glad I memorized, because I did have to have, and I did, my statistics are all fine. So that was winning. And
then when you came off the stage, was your husband there? Any family?
No, they were all in the audience because I was number 2. So they had to stay in the audience. So there was a green room.
So they were there.
They were there. Yeah. All my sisters were there. All their spouses, my parents, there was like my kids.
Celebrate together.
They were there. We all went for a big dinner at an Italian place afterwards. But you go to the green room, which is just like a student. You're in a student theater, right? Yep. You go to the green room, and I remember I went back to the green room and I sat down, and the other speakers had to go, and I was just like, I feel like I'm going to pass out. And I was so exhausted, for about 40 minutes. And then as the other speakers came out, I said, how do you feel? And they're like, I could take a nap right now. I'm like, I could have taken a nap after that.
Right. It's just so much emotion and energy happening while you're up there. And I'm sure you were, you always smile. You've got that about you. I bet it was the biggest smile ever while you were up there. I did
smile, like I said, but you're trying to be serious with it too. And the one thing I wish I had done was I was watching videos on how to do a better TED Talk afterwards. You can't control every TED Talk. Some of them were at recording studios, some were at theaters, some were at gymnasium. They're all different, right? Mine, because the monitor was up there, I shouldn't actually try to look at the audience at all. So in mine, I'm looking down like this all the time. I should have been staring right at the camera, way high up the whole time. I read that tip afterwards, because then the whole time you're talking, it's just you. It'd be like me looking like this,
right? Like we're looking right at you,
right? Versus me looking like this,
right?
Right? But I didn't know that.
But that's a learning experience. I mean, it was your first time,
now I know though. Like when you go on stage and speak, like you might be speaking to the audience, but if this is going to be what they call a digital artifact, and it's something that's going to be permanent and it's going to be there, then you do have to factor in, how do I look at the audience and the camera and balance it? And I'm like, so I just learned something huge.
So you're already planning for your second one?
Well, the coaches I work with, a lot of people do 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And so we have talked about what my second and third one would be. So we were working on that. Maybe, we'll see. That could be definitely a project next year.
So you'll have to let us know when this is out then. So I can have bragging rights, say I interviewed that, right? But congratulations again on that, because we've talked before we started the camera how you do love to do public speaking, and I can relate to that one. I need to see my audience. I need that energy. That would have been tricky for me.
So can I tell you one little thing about the thing? So because I went deaf as an adult, so I'm a very outgoing extrovert, but I'm fit with hearing aids when I'm 18, going back to my story. Between 18 and 38, I go deaf. I hadn't talked on the telephone for 10 years by the time I was 38, 37, 38. my first time, and I always knew that I was meant to do something on stage or meant to speak, but I had never done it. My first time holding a microphone in my life and standing on stage was May 31st of 2023 last year in Sarnia when I hosted our hearing and brain event. That was my first time standing on stage in my life or speaking into a microphone. I've never spoken to a microphone. I've never had like it. And then since that time, I've been on the stage every 2 weeks.
You got the bug.
Oh, I love it.
Listen, I can relate. Like, do you remember Mr. Microphone, the wireless microphone you could get
with the machines?
It was a Mr. Micro. It was a wireless microphone you tuned to your FM radio.
Oh, I know. Yes.
And it was, and they had a commercial. It was, hey, you know, I got one of those when I was 10 years old. Everything from that point was over, right? But there is a. I mean, anybody can be taught to speak if they want to learn it, but there is a bit of a natural thing to it. Like my wife will say, I got to switch as soon as I walk on the stage. Like I'm nervous, right? But then as soon as I'm out there, the switch goes on and away you go.
I agree. So I've been asked that a few times. And I was speaking in Toronto just 2 weeks ago to a group of 75 people in Vaughan. And my friend who was doing the MC and said, you know, Nashlea, what I mean? Like you kind of feel like you're out of your body. I said, actually, the minute I step on stage and I go, hello, I'm like, I'm in my body. I said, it's on. And I said, I competed in bodybuilding when I was 40. And that's how I felt on stage then too. And I didn't know that feeling until, but now I know with the microphone, like the minute I get on stage, I just forget about everything and time goes away on me and I'm just completely engaged.
I can totally relate to that 100%. And one of the things I had to learn though was there's a time to talk. Yes. There's a time to pause.
Yes.
Dramatic effect, if you will. But there's a time to pause and wait for the reaction from that audience or just to give them a moment to think about what you just said. And my biggest one was like I'm talking too fast because I get excited. And then it's like... Bring it down and on.
Or like, please slow down. I tell the audience, wave your hands in the air like you just don't care.
Right.
If I talk too fast, and
Yeah, good for you. And so we expect to see more probably locally then?
Yeah, I do. So I do my events every 2 weeks in Sarnia at the Best Western. So every month I have the Best Western. So we have one next week with like 55 people where I have the hearing and brain or tinnitus and brain talk. Mm-hmm. And then 2 weeks later, I've done that now 6 times where I have a living with the hearing loss event where I invite all the people who are here. And also I do usually show it on social media. So I will be doing more in the future where people can come and I talk about, so like the last time I talked about FM technology, but the time I talked about that was empathy mapping. Then I did communicating your hearing loss to a loved one. In the future, we have planned an event for supporting a family member and friend with hearing loss, using digital apps with your hearing loss and virtual appointments. So each month.
So, and are these free webinars?
They're free. No, they're free events in person.
So how does somebody sign up?
If you're following my social media, I'll always have the registration link.
Okay.
And then people come. And we usually have between 50 to 100 people. And a lot of it was for me because I'm trying to develop an online program for training program. And I was trying to write my book. And the two things I was like, well, I'm better because I'm not doing it just live and then recording myself and taking my transcripts. So I got this idea in December that I had my first event in December as well. If I had these living with hearing loss events every month and I'm teaching people live, then because I'm more natural live and more authentic live, then that's going to be better content than me sitting there trying to do like something planned. So
because I do live streaming, I have a live streaming business as well. And one of the things I learned was live is honest, recorded is polished. And I think you're right, going back into the relationship side of what you do, that just connects with it. But you can do it live and you can take those live and just make all kinds of clips.
Well, we wanted to do, well, one of our options was too, as we were working on it, was finding a space in Sarnia where we could have basically lead equipment set up and actually allow people to zoom in also while I was doing it and have someone respond to him while I was talking.
Right.
And my next step too also was to do virtual live Zoom, like Zooms but live, because I do find like the people ask me the questions and that gives me a lot of ideas on what to talk about.
100%.
And sometimes I can start the topic and we're talking about living with the hearing loss and how to communicate with your loved one, but then someone will bring up something they're going through with their husband. And for the next 10 minutes, I'll talk about that. But then that means that there's another 50 people in the audience that it's actually important to.
Yeah.
Right? I love how it really just drives what the audience needs versus what I need. Because sometimes
Tell
I might
me what
be
you
off,
want, right?
It's like them. So yeah, I've been doing that since December in Sarnia. And that was part of when I got really excited. I'm like, okay, I want content. I need to write a book. And that was the practice. And just learning how to speak on stage, because now I'm getting invited. I just got invited to speak in Vegas in October. So
your husband must go, this is so familiar to me, right? Right? If you meet Jennifer, he must go, really, honey, another thing. Right? Good for you, though, right? Like, yeah.
Why? Why?
What's his why? Why?
What is wrong with you? That's more. Why don't you just want to sit in the chair and read a book?
But that kind of leads to my next thing: the support you must have from your husband and your family to do all these things that you do. I mean, I'm that believer too of surround yourself with the right people and all that stuff. So what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun?
Like outside of audiology
so I read a
and
book every
everything.
week, so I'm an aggressive reader.
Oh, good. That's important. I think a lot of people, I read a stat not too long ago. It was quite sad. I can't remember the number, but most people, when they finish school education, university, college, stop reading the books that are helpful. They read the romance novel or they watch Netflix, but they're not reading books anymore.
No, yeah, it's important.
And that's to exercise
right?
And
it really, for me, it's been a personal development journey. So right now I'm reading Jamie Lim Kerma's Worthy. And it's about self-confidence and believing you're worthy of the life you want. And all the books I've read, from business development to leadership, just public speaking, like John Maxwell. I'm going to see John Maxwell in August.
I'm so jealous. I was just reading John Maxwell.
Did you read his new book?
I haven't got the new book, but I was just reading some of his older stuff. Where's that happening?
He has the event in Florida. I think it's August 16th or 18th for the day. So I was just like, yes.
You got to come back and tell me all about that. Take your notebook out.
Well, my friend's going with me, and I saw it, and that was kind of like, I'm one of those people believe it's like a yes or a no. So I'm like, this is a yes. Like, this is something I want to see him on stage. My hobbies. Some of my hobbies are some of my book authors I've seen on stage. So like I've seen Tony Robbins, I've seen Rachel Hollis, I've seen Gary Chapman from the 5 Love Languages. So Oprah. So one of my passions was going to places and traveling to see the people who inspire me. The other one is we are very passionate downhill mountain skiers out in BC. So we spend 4 or 5 weeks every winter heli skiing, all mountain skiing in British Columbia in the interior. We also do downhill mountain biking out there. So we spend a lot of time, and we fly to Calgary and then go into Golden. So Golden, BC is my second home. So I love the mountains, the outdoors. I did for years pretty much my whole life up until 2 years ago, I was at the gym every day for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I ruptured my Achilles tendon. But for 10 years, I had bodybuilding fitness coaches, and I did compete a few times. And so I'm trying to get back into that now. After I ruptured my tendon, I kind of got sidetracked. But if someone had asked me 2 years ago, I would have said, biking, downhill skiing, cross-country skiing, working out in the gym, reading. And I love traveling.
You're just loving life, aren't you?
I do. I don't the only time you'll see me sitting is if I have a book and listen to podcasts.
Is this hard for you to sit here this long?
No, this is going to the camera.
I got the camera on. I got some,
But yeah, I do.
But it's an active lifestyle.
I live a very active lifestyle. And I'm just, everyone's obviously
keeping the mind active.
And my keep mind. And one thing in life is if so many people say, what's wrong with you? Why can't you just be content, right? And I'm like, I'm doing me now, and I'm very happy. Like I feel.
Was it hard to get there? Like, and sorry to interrupt again there, but like it's boy, there's so much you're talking about that I can relate to in my own life. And there comes a time where, there's that saying, I don't give it anymore, right? But it's almost true, isn't it? Like, do you get to a point where you're just like, you know what? I'm living for me. Yeah. And I'm not sorry if you're not okay with it. Was that hard to get to that place for you?
100%. Like, even people just didn't understand. I mean, it really started with, when I opened up a business in my 20s, because I didn't have maternity leaves, I only had 3 weeks off. Right?
And was the age a thing that you had to overcome? Sometimes people look, a young person, right?
Yeah, no, you're young, and for sure. When I first started in business, and then,
and sorry again, as a woman?
Yeah.
Was that like, oh, well,
because people didn't respect you. And I had people saying, how are you going to do this? You shouldn't be doing that. Like, you should be at home. Like, there was just so many things that had said to me. Yeah. And then when I got my hearing back and I decided to compete in bodybuilding, well, the opinions I had on that was fascinating, right? I'm like, why do you care if I want to spend hours at the gym? Why do you care if I track my food and I train so much and I enjoy this? Like, why do you care? So my journey to the self-development was, then I started going to the conferences. And as I went to the conferences, like Tony Robbins and Rachel Hollis, Ed Myatt, I've heard all of them, Brendan Burchard, and I heard all of them. And I was like, there is another side. When you're taught, there's another way to live, and it's okay to be you. It's okay to choose your passions if you're giving out to the world, and not like, and I do. I feel like I help other people. I give to other people, and I give a lot more when I'm happy being me.
Right.
If I have to come home and it's like,
I feel like doing it.
Yeah, I like it. Like, I don't work a 9-to-5 job, and I don't pretend that. I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes I'll like do 3 hours of work and then do nothing for 2 hours and come to the office, then work. Then I sometimes work until 2 o'clock in the morning because I want to, or Saturdays. And I love it. And it's not like I've had people, oh, you're a workaholic. It's like, actually, no, because I get to stop it and go do something else when I enjoy it, and then come back and refuel myself. And I think for me, that's been the ultimate, is the freedom to choose what I enjoy and then how I can give back to the world. Because for me right now, it's always like, well, how can I give back to other people? I can grow my team. And I think personal development plays, there's a lot of great information out there. It's just, I think the journey can be messy because you kind of have to like...
I call it kind of the Google journey, because Google's like the graffiti wall of the world, but you got to filter through all the crap to get to the core of what it is you're looking for, And
you do.
Same thing with personal development, because there's so much out there, and I'm huge on that as well. But there's so, it's like, okay, there's just so much out there. You do kind of find the ones that resonates with you, right?
Well, and you don't want to be a pity party.
No.
And you don't want to go through a part where you're blaming everybody.
No.
And you don't want to go through a part where you go home and you blame your parents for all your problems. Right. So it's funny, I say my husband's been very supportive, my family. They just know who I am now. Yeah. Right. But when I was in high school, I remember my dance teacher saying, you dance to you dance to your own drum beat, Nashlea. Like, I was just that person. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I got back into my late 40s that I'm like, no, this is who I am. Like, you're not going to fit me in your box. And if people don't like it, then
you can be over there.
That's okay.
I'll be right where no, you can be over there. I'll be right where I want to be.
And losing my hearing, I mean, I went deaf, right? I mean, when you go deaf, it's you lose all your hearing. Like, I lost all my hearing.
Yeah.
It's a whole different experience.
Yeah. This is just, I'm loving this conversation because, well, like I say, there's a lot of similarities, the personal development, the overcoming obstacles, the journey. Sometimes the journey is even like, I don't even actually know where I'm going with this. I just know I'm going that way.
That's where I am now.
And then I get to where I am now, and it's like, do you look back and do you go, my goodness, 3 years ago, I never would have thought this would be the place I'm at. I wanted to be close to this place, but specifically.
That's actually the reason the book called The Gap versus the Gain, because I always have to make sure that I'm not living in the gap. So I do a lot of reverse journaling. So instead of always like, basically, in order for me to appreciate how far I've come, I have to, in my mind, I sit down to journal and I pretend it's January of 2023.
Oh, yeah.
And what I think is going to happen in the next 12 years, what my dreams are, that's reverse journaling, and then actually look at what actually happened.
Oh, wow.
Right? And when you reverse journal, you live in the game. But most of us always live in the gap. We're always thinking, I'm here and I'm never going to get to there.
Yeah.
Right? But if you can, in your mind, reverse journal, which is the actually opposite of what a lot of us do for journaling, it allows you to start to appreciate how far you've come. Because I'm the same way. Like, my North Star, we always talk about our North Star, and it's like, is it a financial goal or fulfillment? Mine's like a really messy thing. Because mine's just like, I'm just going this way, and all I know is I feel really good about it. Yeah. Right? But do I have defined targets? No. Yeah. But then if I look at how far I've come, set goals, but they're not like, I just know that I've come really far. Like, I mean,
you can go in the general direction and narrow it down as you go, I guess would be
exactly. Like, I want to do more speaking. I want to impact more people. I want to create a video series on how to live with the hearing loss. Like, there's things I know I want to do, right? And then I just have to remind myself that I'm constantly looking back, because it's really cool when you read Gap versus the Gain on reverse.
And I find like a lot of people, and you sort of touched on it earlier. It's like, do I deserve this? Or I don't deserve to be. There's a book about being rich. Like I don't deserve to have money.
Yeah.
Or I don't deserve to have success. I've been born into my role, or I've been conditioned into my role, and this is where I am, and away we go. And I want to help wake those people up.
Yeah, or even believing that your job doesn't have to be a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
Or that
I'm way past that.
You can think about legacies, or you can think about planning, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with believing that you value yourself, right? I mean, all of that, and that's actually comes up in the book Worthy that I'm reading right now, because they talk a lot about that. Like, you are worthy of everything you want to be. And you need to define
it. It doesn't have to be go to school, get good grades, get a good
job.
No,
it's based on you and where you're going. And
I'm not that smart. I'm really not. I'm not book smart at all. But I always I couldn't wait to get done in high school because I wanted to. Because I knew everything, right?
But you have people skills, right? And that's. I mean,
but it's funny. When I first became a DJ at the age of about 18, I lied about my age so I could work in the bar. They didn't check
back then.
But it was like, and it was playing the music was no problem. And then they said, now you got to talk on the microphone. You got to promote the events, drink specials, whatever. And I was like, I got to talk on a microphone now. Can't shut me up sometimes, right? But it's I guess what I was going with that is these are skills that can be learned. Like I think sometimes we go, well, I can't do that. Well, no, you can't today. The same way you couldn't do your 2+2 until you got to grade 1. You had to learn your ABCs first, right? Are we afraid to learn as adults?
I think most are. I mean, they're scared of change. They're not realizing you crawl before you walk. Like, you just put one foot in the other, and each time you do something, you're just getting closer to it. Yeah. I mean, I want to learn how to drive a boat now and have a boat. And I mean, that's what I'll do. Actually, I always see you with your motorcycle. And a couple of years ago, it was actually before COVID, because my dad always drove a motorcycle. I was doing my motorcycle license, and my son wants to. And I was like, they think you're crazy. I'm like, of course I can do that, but I just know it's going to be one step in front of the other, right? Yeah. And all of those things are just one step. So as adults, we can learn. But for some reason, everyone has this notion of what happens in your 20s and then what you're supposed to do in your 30s and your 40s and your 50s. And it's kind of like, then you're getting close, like I'm 48 and you're getting close to 50. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Even when I was doing my TED Talk, I bring up gray divorces in the TED Talk, and that's divorce over the age of 50. And I'm like, why do they assume I'm going to have gray hair at 50? It's not happening. But it's just there's this notion that we're going to do, but somebody could be jumping out of an airplane at 50 or 60. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do if you put your mind to it. And it's not all based on book smarts. I think the book smart thing is very, in our society, it's always like my son now is going to university next year, but I keep saying to him, you really got to focus on what you love. Find something you enjoy. If you enjoy it and you're passionate about it and it comes easy to you, I said the worst advice you ever get is work on your weaknesses. We should teach people to work on your strengths. If you're a good speaker, work on speaking.
Enhance on that.
Right? Don't, when we work on our weaknesses too much, we never focus on our strengths. Where if we develop a society where everybody feels that they have a strength that they're good at.
I'm still learning how to speak. I've been doing it for years, but I'm still learning and enhancing. How can I still get better at that? How can I keep going? But the learning thing, and I wish more and more people would work on this, the personal development, and so that's nice to hear that that's part of what you're doing as well. And I'm really excited. I'm excited for your future.
Thank you.
Right?
Excited for yours too.
Right, yeah. And maybe we'll do a talk together here. I don't know. That might be fun.
We could do. Yes, I'd love to do a talk.
Because
I'm always working on my speaking, and I'm trying to do courses on it now. And
I want to come out to one of your hearing.
Brian. 100%.
Webinars and actually. I won't get too deep in this, but I believe in the laws of the universe, and I feel like this interview's kind of brought us together for a reason.
Yes.
And the timing of you're talking about the falls, like I say, we have some family. I know Jennifer's going to want to talk to you. No more.
Yes.
What's your? I got to start wrapping things up. We should just do a series on you, boy.
Series.
But back to your Bluewater hearing, do people just walk in the door and say, I need help? Or
yeah, they can walk in. We usually say to call us. You can message us online. Okay. You can call us. You can walk in, right? We definitely have the website, bluewaterhearing.ca.
Okay.
I'm also on the Facebook. You can message, on Instagram, message, or walk in. And then we basically answer all your questions and find out where that person is and what they need.
I think I might take you up on some of that.
We have to do a hearing test, a scheduled hearing assessment.
I know you, like, holy crap, I thought I was busy, right? But thank you so much for making the time for myself and our viewers here today. I really appreciate you, Nashlea, and I know we're going to talk some more. But you know the routine here. Click the like and the love button here. But the share button, it's the most important button, so we can share Nashlea's story and everybody else I have here on the show. But as always, that's all the time I got for you this week. Have a great week and an even better weekend, and we'll see you next time right here on the show. Bye for now.
Thank you.
That's it.